Good morning, Ministry of Righteousness. My name is Jason, and I'm excited to be with you today. God's doing some amazing things, and so excited to go on this journey with you as we trust Him together. And so I hope that, I know that the gospel is working powerfully in each and every one of your lives, and I hope that your life is being refreshed by the messages and having encouragement through all that God has done on our behalf. And so today I wanted to just come and talk to you from the heart about the gospel. And there's been something that the Lord has just really been highlighting to me that has just been like, wow, like how cool is that? And how good is the gospel and the finished work of Jesus? And I just wanted to start with a verse from Romans 1:16, where Paul tells us, he says, I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for salvation for all who believe. For in it, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And so as we look at this beautiful gospel, I wanted to highlight something just right there that Paul says, where he says that the gospel itself is the power of God for all who believe. Not for all who work for it, not for all who are trying hard to improve, but it's for all who believe. So sometimes in religious teachings, we can hear stuff that seeks to perfect a form of righteousness or perfect a form of holiness or of sanctification. And I want to encourage you guys today that the truth that really sets us free is that all of these things have been given to us by God as a free gift for all who believe. And how can I say that so boldly? I mean, how can we say that, righteousness is given as a free gift and that there isn't anything that we can add to it, there isn't anything we can do to try to perfect it? And I would just present to you that God gave us the life of His Son. And the life of His Son is what God says is righteous. God says that the life of His Son is righteous and holy, sanctified, set apart, and He is our fully sufficient life. And so when we go about trying to perfect righteousness through our own effort and through our own works or through religious practices that we think are going to make us righteous and cleaner and closer to God, what we're actually doing, and I don't think that this is everybody's heart, but what we're actually doing is we're saying that the finished work of Jesus isn't enough. And so the truth that'll set you free is actually coming to this place of saying and agreeing with God that the finished work of Jesus is enough, and that we don't have to try to perfect righteousness or holiness or sanctification. But as we look unto the finished work of Jesus, God says that this becomes a free gift for all who believe. And so sometimes, I'll hear when I present stuff like that, people are saying, well, so what are you saying? That we just live lawless? That we just go on and, maybe continue in our sins so that grace may abound? And that is absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the life of Jesus is perfect righteousness, it's perfect holiness, and it's perfect sanctification. And by the grace of God, He's taken up residence inside of us. See, God chose to make His home inside of us and to give us the very life of His Son. And God says that that is well-pleasing when we put our faith in Jesus. And so rather than trying to perfect those things, my encouragement is to take a look and perceive the finished work of Christ and what that means for you, that He lives inside of you, that He has united Himself spirit to spirit with you and has become your fully sufficient life. I do have to warn and just use a word of caution that when we try to do something for God that God has done for us, we're actually being disobedient to the message. And so when we talk about obedience, and I know that that's a word that is thrown around a lot in religious circles, I think that obedience is great. But the question is, obedience to what? Because if it's obedience to works and obedience to behavior modification and obedience to performance and obedience to our track record of trying to have quiet times or fasting or time in the Word, which all those things aren't bad things in and of themselves, but if we think that the obedience that God requires is obedience to some type of work, we actually are showing that we're not truly understanding the gospel. And so Paul tells us in the book of Romans as well, in the first, I think it's maybe verse 3 or something like that, that he has been given grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith amongst the Gentiles for all nations. And so the obedience that it is that God's actually calling us to isn't obedience to a religious practice. It's not obedience to a spiritual gift. It's not obedience to our works or behavior modification. It's not obedience to our human effort to try to accomplish something, but it's obedience to faith in the finished work of Jesus. And what's awesome about that is that it absolutely kills all pride and ego. It kills our boasting and this whole separation in the church where some people think that they're up here while others maybe aren't that spiritual and they're down here. Some people perform really, really well with their type A personality, and other people, kind of go on the passive side and maybe aren't active. What I believe that the Lord wants to do is bring us accountable to the finished work of Jesus, because true accountability isn't going to be by cleaning the outside of the cup to put on a performance or to put on on something that it is that we're doing to receive accolades from people or to make us feel better about ourselves. But true accountability is going to be really humbling ourselves to the finished work of Jesus. And so that's my encouragement for you. And with that, let's have a quick talk about pride and humility. So pride is going to say, I'm going to try to do it through my own effort and my own ability. I'm going to be righteous by the works that it is that I do. I'm going to be righteous by keeping the law or a law that it is that I've made. And I'm sanctifying myself by trying to be obedient to a list of rules. And unfortunately, while that sounds like it would be maybe a noble thing to do, and if you exerted enough of your effort that at some point you would really please God, unfortunately that's just not the way that it works, because God doesn't receive glory from any man, and our works don't actually impress God in any way because we are his children. And so what impresses God is not self-righteousness, and it's not pride, and it's not ego, and it's not look at me and what it is that I did, but it's actually humility. You remember where it says, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And so what does humility look like? I mean, we got all types of false humility that think that it looks like some type of religious practice by applying ourselves to more work. But that's actually not true humility. True humility is when we admit that we can't, and we count the finished work of Jesus in highest honor, and we turn our eyes to him, and we say the same thing that we said at salvation, where it's basically like, God, I can't do these things. I can't live your life. I can't perfect righteousness in my own strength. I can't perfect holiness in my own strength. I can't perfect sanctification through my works and through my effort. But you have given me a free gift that is beyond anything that I could imagine. You've given me a free gift for all who believe, and that free gift is the finished work of Jesus. And it's even further than the finished work of Jesus, because it's the very life of Jesus, being united with us spirit to spirit and us living from that place of our union. And so when we humble ourselves and we actually say, God, I actually agree with you that I can't, but you can, and so I'm going to let you. We become a vessel of honor. and a vessel where we are honoring the finished work of Jesus. And I'm just going to present this to you, but I think that God's really pleased with the life of his son. I hope that we wouldn't have any type of disagreement on those types of things, but God is really pleased with the life of his son, and he's really pleased to give us the life of his son. And he's really pleased that in giving us the life of his son, that he's also given us full sufficiency. He's raised us up together and seated us with Christ in the heavenly places. He has brought us close forever. There's not going to be any more closeness than we already are with God, because God has made us clean and close by uniting us together with Christ. And that's the obedience that pleases God, is when we believe God and we say, you know what? Okay, you've raised me together with Christ. You've made me righteous. You've made me holy. You've sanctified me. You've forgiven all of my sins as far as the east is from the west. You took out the handwriting of legal requirements against me. You raised and seated me with Christ in heavenly places. And so your dedication to care for me is more than enough. And today, I'm going to let you. So, and not just for today, but it's also for daily living. For every day, Jesus Christ has become our fully sufficient life as a free gift for all who believe. Can't work for it. So I hope that encourages you guys today as we just meditate in on the goodness of the gospel. And really the central message on that is going to be this. And if I could just sum it up, God did for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And God sustains for us what it is that he did in our everyday living, in every situation. So I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing day. Meditate on the truth of the gospel, because just as Jesus says, when you know the truth will set you free. And the gospel, again, is not what it is that we do for God, but the gospel is what it is that God has done for us. So God bless you guys. Have an amazing week. We'll talk to you soon.